Thanks for joining us today for Do It Yourself Updating Your Website. I'm Nancy O'Leary. I'm part of the team here at Custom Direct. We're a marketing agency that's focused on building sustainable growth for manufacturers and industrial companies that support manufacturing. One of the questions that we get often asked is, how do I improve my website performance? We haven't really done a lot of updating to it, and we're not really sure where to start. And really, it can be a very overwhelming topic. So our goal today is to make this very straightforward and easy to follow. So let's just jump right in. What we're going to be covering today, we're going to talk about the curb appeal of your homepage. Yes, the curb appeal of your homepage. We're going to discuss the navigation that really engages your visitors and keeps them on your website. We're going to talk about the biggest secret to website traffic, and it's your content. And last but certainly not least, we're going to touch on when it might be helpful to get some help. But let's be positive and move forward. The curb appeal of your homepage. You get one chance to make a great first impression and make sure that you make it count. And by that, we mean your logo should be really clearly visible. It's very common to have a logo that perhaps has been around for decades, depending on how long your company has been in existence. And over time, that logo might have been reproduced numerous times, and maybe what you've got on your website isn't the cleanest version of it. Might be hard to read some of the words, particularly if you have a tagline. It's really important to make sure that your logo is crisp and clean, and equally important, make sure that what you do is clearly visible right at the top of your website when folks land. Even if your logo is self-explanatory and talks exactly about what you do, never underestimate the importance of having your core competency right at the top. We call that above the fold. It's kind of a old school throwback to newspapers. And of course, all the most important headline information was above the fold. Same true with your website. While more than half of website searches now occur on cell phones or on a tablet, it's still important to keep that mindset in that for folks that are looking at your website on a desktop, and anything that they find on that top half or top third of your website is critically important to understanding what you do. Last but certainly not least, we strongly recommend to shy away from having long videos or a carousel of images right at the top of your website. Those are definitely some design elements which have come into favor and have come out of favor. And really what we're starting to find from a user experience is that folks really get distracted by all that movement, and then they tend to not pay attention to your core competency. And most importantly, they tend to leave fairly quickly rather than remaining engaged on your website. There's certainly a time and a place for that kind of content. We recommend further down on your homepage or even on an about page, or maybe it's even on one of your capabilities pages. But we'd recommend thinking twice about if you've already got video right at the top of your website, think about this might be the time to replace it with perhaps a single image with a very bold statement about exactly what you do, to leave nothing to chance for that person visiting your website for the first time. Let's draw in some before and after. Sometimes, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Here's an example of a website that, while they had the best of intentions, really there was a lot going on. And then on the other hand, not a lot going on when it came to really understanding and explaining what this company did. This company builds modular elevators, and those are those building block type elevators that can be incorporated within a building or on the outside of, say, a stadium. And so while the information that they had on their homepage seemed to resonate internally within the company, they were finding a very high bounce rate. People really weren't engaging with their website at all. And they had this incredible video that you can see right in the middle. Problem was nobody was sticking around long enough to watch the video. They didn't necessarily understand at a glance what this company did. And so by contrast, by completely transforming their website and especially taking care to look at their homepage, knowing that when folks landed, they had to understand immediately what this company did. The focus remained on ensuring, again, right at the top, that above the fold, a clean, easy to read navigation. What this company did, they make elevators and they make it very easy. And then really their 4 pillars the things that the company is most well known for are these 4 areas there. We're going to talk a little bit more about what could be on your homepage and what really pulls people in just a moment. Navigation which engages, and this really goes hand in hand with the type of content and how you have content laid out on your homepage. A user experience, or UX, is the #1 reason why visitors either stay or leave a website, and you've got really less than 2 seconds for someone to make that decision whether they're going to immediately bounce off. So if you think back to that example a couple slides back, really, would you stay? Was there enough information there for you to understand what the company even did? Maybe, maybe not. Definitely with that second example where we show really an engaging homepage with very clear navigation and a very clear capability statement. Now you understand what this company does, and you're learning just a little bit more when you see those 4 pillars underneath. Strongly recommend the best business practice for your navigation. When you consider that folks are reading from left to right, you ideally want to start with a sitemap where your products and services are first, or on that far left side. Then you want to move to resources, and we'll talk in a minute about what resources are. Then the about page, which is about your company. And then last but certainly not least, a contact page. Now that could be contact, it could be request an RFQ, but the reason we want to talk about this just a little bit longer is when it comes to your navigation, this isn't the time to use clever words to try to be, I would say, really creative with what you're calling what you do. This is the time to be really clear and candid, because the idea is you want to keep folks on your website. You want them to engage. You want them to learn more about you. And here's a great rule of thumb. For most folks landing on a website, on the homepage for the first time, they have a natural tendency to navigate one of 2 ways. They either navigate across the top following the navigation bar and clicking on each of those to kind of see what the drop downs are, see what kind of content might be there. And about the other half of the folks out there tend to scroll down on the homepage first to see what sort of information is on the homepage. Think about your own use. What do you do first? Do you tend to click on everything, or do you tend to scroll down? Me, I tend to be a scroll downer, but many people love to just hover across the top just to kind of get a lay of the land, as it were, before they start really digging in. And for that reason, because you don't know what the natural tendency is to your visitors when they're coming to your homepage for the first time, it's really helpful to ensure that your homepage really mirrors what your navigation is. And so by that, we mean if you've got information about products and services, then resources, about, and then contact information going across your navigation, you want to follow suit with the types of content that mirror that as you scroll down on your homepage. Let's take a look at a sitemap. So here's an example of a website that had an awful lot of information, and they had a lot going on. You can see by the areas that have the little dots around them, those were non-clickable pages. And from a user experience, that's kind of a big no-no. You really want to ensure that whatever sort of experience folks have when they visit your website, that it's similar for every single page. What do I mean by that? I mean that when folks hover on a page right at the top in the navigation and there's a drop down, they should have that same experience for every single page. If you click on that page, do you go to a landing page with more information before you go to those sub pages? Or do you just have to click and choose a specific page right out of the gate? Highly recommend that you keep that standard all the way across your website, whether they're clickable or non-clickable. And you can see here, this is really a mix. This is a mix of some pages are clickable, some are not. And so it makes the navigation a little bit clunky, makes it a little bit tough for folks to understand where they should go. I also like to point out resources. We'll talk about resources a little bit more in a moment, but you can see here, resources here really have information on them that belongs in your footer. They have confidentiality agreement, terms and conditions. And while those could somewhat be considered a resource, they're really the type of thing that visitors would want to find in your footer. Resources are actually more likely seen as spec sheets or case studies or videos or blog. You can see on this proposed sitemap versus the existing one, it's a much cleaner navigation. I'm going to flip back for just a moment. You can see again, the current one is kind of a mix of a lot of different things going on. And under our company, there's a mix of things here. You can see there's an about us, there's employment, there's news, there's testimonials. But when we move to the proposed sitemap, things are very clear. Now there's the services right out of the gate, right on the left-hand side, with all the information about the services that are provided, our company, and then the resources, the contact us, and then a fast quote or request a quote. When it comes to information about your company and resources and contact us, those are absolutely, I would say, a little bit more malleable. You know, you can kind of shift the order a little bit, but you want to be sure that you always lead with your services and you always end on the far right with your quote, your request a quote, or if you have just contact us, you want that to be on the far right. Why? Because really it's a best business practice and it's really what people are starting to expect more and more as they visit websites. So you want that familiarity. You don't want folks to be frustrated that they're not finding what they're expecting when they land on your website. And then lastly, I just want to mention as well, the footer here will have the copyright, the contact information, the confidentiality agreement, and terms and conditions, and any social media links. So it'll be very clean footer. And don't forget your footer, as long as we're on the topic, your footer is critically important to helping folks navigate around your website, and it's literally present on every single page. So be sure your footer is working for you. Make sure that those key pages on your website also have hyperlinks in the footer, so that whether folks are at the top of a page or at the bottom of the page, they can easily navigate to the next page that they're interested in, and they don't have to scroll all the way up again. The biggest secret to your website traffic is content. Now, there could be an entire conversation we could have about search engine optimization or SEO, but that's not what this is about. This video today is all about content. When it comes to driving traffic to your website, content is king. There are algorithms and lots of really incredible tools which can help search engines like Google drive traffic to your website. One of the real problems with search engine optimization or SEO is that the algorithms that get used for Google or the other search engines often change, and they change to react to how people are using Google. You know, how successful are they in finding their results that they're actually looking for, or are they clicking away and getting frustrated? This might come as a bit of a surprise, but Google exists for one reason and one reason only, and it's not for you to get traffic to your website. Google exists so that people that use them as a tool can find what they're looking for in one try. That's Google's aim. So if you aren't helping by having rich content with keywords that really speak to your capabilities, you're really going to be at a disadvantage because Google's not going to help you. Those algorithms that they develop, those are to tweak and modify so that folks that use Google can get what they want right out of the gate when it comes to search results. And if you're curious, how successful are they in getting folks where they want to be with the first try? It hovers at around 5 or 6%. Google's aiming to try to get that into double digits. So now you understand, I wouldn't say they're not your friend, but Google really isn't going to be helping you out. You've got to help yourself. So let's talk about that content. If this is something that you perhaps are rolling your eyes or you're thinking, oh gosh, this is one more thing on my to-do list, I'm here to say it does not have to be an overwhelming task or really even a long to-do list. Keep in mind that Google, and we'll say Google, but really all the search engines are the same. They want to find 500 words on each page of your website. The exceptions are if you have product pages or your contact us page, which tends to be a form more often than not. But all of your other pages, you really want to beef it up. You really want to put content in there that speaks specifically to what your capabilities are. When you're talking about your company, you want to talk about the history of your company. You want to talk about your company's goals. what your company's commitment to sustainability is. And you might even want to talk a little bit about your company culture as well. This is a great opportunity for you to shine and really let folks know what it'll be like working with you. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, really, Nance? I don't really think anybody cares about About. I got news for you. They do. In fact, more often than not, first-time visitors to your website will go to the About page before they will even go to anything about your products, services, or your capabilities. Folks want to know what it's going to be like working with you. And as we see a new generation of decision makers in the workforce, your company culture is incredibly important to them. So make sure that you've got great information on your About page about your company. I would be remiss if I didn't mention images when we talk about content. Images are not only important for the obvious benefit of showing folks what you do or what your company looks like, what the building looks like, what part of your team looks like, but it's also important because it's giving you an opportunity to really lean into showing your subject matter expertise. And yes, that matters to search engines. Images work extremely well when search engines are reviewing and crawling the back end of your website. When you have a gallery or you at least have pictures which are demonstrating your core competencies, you show subject matter expertise. But it's important to not just have images. You want to make sure that they're sized correctly and that they're tagged correctly. When images are added to your website, make sure they clearly explain what it's a picture of. Now, you might be saying to yourself, okay, well, all right, I get that. How am I going to add pictures? We'll talk about that in a moment. But please keep in mind, when you don't have pictures sized correctly, it's going to really affect the load time on your website, which is going to frustrate visitors if a page doesn't load quickly and they're going to leave. And both of those areas are going to impact you negatively with Google. You're going to really get dinged twice. You're going to get dinged once because pages are loading slowly, and you're going to get dinged a second time because everyone's leaving. So let's talk about really where you need to focus when it comes to this do-it-yourself. This checklist is going to cover a lot of what we just talked about today, and we're going to move into talking a little bit about when you might want to get some help. Your logo. As you look at your website, be honest. Is it sized right? Is it proportional? Does it fit the spot on your website? Is it clean and is it easy to read? And what about a straightforward explanation of your core competency, like a capability statement? Is that up at the top? Is it easier for folks to understand when they land on your website what it is your company does? Let me mention this real quick. Think about your own search tactics. When you're looking for something, maybe you're looking for a company to do business with, chances are you're using some keywords, and you might have several different options appear in your search results. Now, you might sit and methodically click on one and it pops up and you carefully read through it, or you might be clicking on several and letting each of them open in a new window. And then you'll go back and then you'll start looking at each of those by comparison. But you will have lost track of what the company name is because you're no longer looking one for one in the search results. Or honestly, if you're looking at several companies, you're really focusing in on how you can understand what it is they do. Again, that goes right back to making sure that it's really clear that folks understand what it is you do and that your logo is really clear, because they may only be looking at the top portion of your website on your homepage as they're comparing you to your competitors. Navigation. Remember, best practices from left to right. Make sure that you have products and services, resources, about, and contact. Really try to have a simple hierarchy and avoid orphan pages. Orphan pages are pages that you can't get to directly, that you can't even link through to. It's common for companies to use landing pages or special pages, maybe sometimes in social media or if they're running ads. But if you've got great content on those pages, make sure that they are part of an existing page that you can link to it. You will really get dinged very heavily for any pages that are not part of your website navigation. Content. two big areas. There's images and there's copy. When it comes to images, make sure they're sized correctly and make sure they're tagged, meaning when you hover on it with your mouse, it tells you what that picture is a picture of. Copy, your goal should be 500 words per page, except for the product page and the contact page. And here's a biggie. Really, on a quarterly basis, it's really helpful if you check your website for accuracy. It's something that we do here, and I'll be honest with you. Sometimes it's like passing the hot potato around over whose turn it is. But, it's amazing how quickly something that's on your website may no longer be accurate. It may be a product or service that everybody just assumed had been updated, but it wasn't on your website. Or maybe you have print material that got updated, but the website wasn't, or vice versa. If you've got any sort of material that's a downloadable that you send out to prospects or to clients, make sure that if they exist on your website, that they're updated there as well. You really want to be as accurate as possible with your website. When should I get help? Okay, there's really, I would say, a couple of instances where if you do not have anyone in-house who's familiar with updating your website, or you don't have a trusted resource, these are some times and some situations where you may want to consider getting some help. Right out of the gate, the first thing we think about are sites that are built in HTML. It's a very robust platform for websites, but it is extremely cumbersome when it comes to updating HTML sites. So if you do not have a trusted resource, or you don't have anyone on staff that knows how to update your website, strongly encourage you to reach out for some help on that situation. If your website is not screen responsive, or otherwise known as mobile friendly, but sometimes folks are still working on tablets as well, that's absolutely a reason to get some help. Really, at this point, if your website can't accommodate a smaller size screen, your bounce rate's going to be tremendous, because folks really just expect it. And as you can imagine with your own use, if you get on a website on your phone, and if you can't see some content and you can't scroll to it, more often than not, you just plain leave. You don't bother messing around. Then you got to ask yourself as well, how significant are the changes that you might need to your website, and what's your time worth? If they're minor tweaks, maybe you need to add some additional content, maybe you want to add some more images, and maybe on the home page you want to add content in a slightly different order. Those may all be things that you can handle internally. But if it's more significant than that, it might make sense to turn and say, okay, how much is my time worth? Maybe I need to get some help. And certainly, if you are ready to move in the direction of e-commerce, strongly recommend that you get some help with that. That's absolutely another really exciting video to come, talking about e-commerce and when you know you're ready, and all that's involved in it. I will say this, when it comes to e-commerce, as a side, it is the fastest growing sales tool within manufacturing right now. And e-commerce doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have cart functionality. It can also mean just a conditional logic RFQ or a configurator that really pulls folks through what they're asking for and submitting it to you. So you already got that conversation moving. And with that, I want to thank you so much for joining us today, and look forward to sharing some more tips and tricks with you in the future.